I love it when affordable products perform well, so the question is this $6 pocket knife just as good as this one which costs $373? Let's find out. In the first test, we'll see which knife comes with the sharpest factory sharpened blade. Then we'll see which one stays the sharpest after quite a bit of use. We'll drop the knives on the blade tip and we'll see which knives have the most durable blade point. At a price of only $6, the least expensive knife we'll be testing is made by AOSILEY. They claim that it has a high quality stainless steel blade that provides exceptional strength. It also has an aluminum handle. And the AOSILEY has a liner lock. And the AOSILEY is made in China. And the AOSILEY weighs just over 129 grams. To test the sharpness of the knives, I'll be using a BEST certified sharpness tester. The tester came with a chart. A double-edged razor blade has a sharpness between 50 and 75. A utility knife razor blade is between 150 and 200. New and high-end cutlery edges are between 250 and 350. Edges that need maintenance are 400 and up. And a butter knife is very dull at around 2,000. The sharpness tester uses disposable test clips that can only be used for one use. The tester measures the amount of downward force that it takes to cut through the test media. At a price of $6, expectations are pretty low. And the AOSILEY did a great job for a $6 knife with a sharpness score of 190. At a price of $10 is this Albatross brand. It's a spring-assisted pocket knife that offers rapid one-hand deployment. You can open it by the flipper on the handle. It's made of 440 stainless steel. Just like the AOSILEY, the Albatross also has a liner lock, and the Albatross is made in China. And it's 105.63 grams for the Albatross. And the Albatross is also pretty sharp, but not as sharp as the AOSILEY with a sharpness score of 205. Also the price of $10 is this GW brand. The claim is compact, versatile, and ready for anything. The blade is made of 440C stainless steel. Just like the previous two brands, it has a liner lock. Serrated blade with aluminum ergonomic handle. And the GW is made in China. And the GW weighs 117.76 grams. And the GW isn't quite as sharp as the AOSILEY and the Albatross with a sharpness score of 215. At a price of $13 is this Mossy oak brand. It has a 4-inch stonewash blade. It also has a G10 handle. They claim the knife can be easily opened by turning the thumb stud. And the Mossy oak is made in China. And it's 118.96 grams for the Mossy oak. For a $13 knife, the Mossy oak comes with a very sharp edge at 165, the best yet. At a price of $14 is this Steinbruke brand. It has a 3.4-inch blade with reversible clip. The stainless steel blade has been hardened to HRC 58 to 59. Antique finish process makes the blade out of the ordinary. And the Steinbruke has a liner lock. And the Steinbruke is made in China. And the Steinbruke is very heavy at 145.63 grams. And the Steinbruke is also very sharp, but not as sharp as the Mossy oak at 170. At a price of $16 is this Crescent brand. It has a 3.5-inch harpoon blade. They claim the blade is made of premium stainless steel. Easy action flipper tab for easy blade deployment. It also has a liner lock. Product of Vietnam and finished in China. And the Crescent is made in China. And the Crescent is the heaviest yet at 146.09 grams. And the Crescent trails the competition with a sharpness score of 235. At a price of $20 is this Old Timer brand. The blade is made of high carbon stainless steel. It has a 2.9-inch drop point blade and wood handle. It's supposed to be very light at only 3.2 ounces. And the Old Timer has a back lock. And the Old Timer is made in China. And it's 87.18 grams for the Old Timer. And the Old Timer might not be the sharpest tool in the tool shed, but it's still pretty sharp at 195. At a price of $20 is this Smith & Wesson brand. They claim that it has a high carbon stainless steel blade. The blade length is 2.8 inches and is supposed to weigh 3.5 ounces. It includes two different thumb knobs. And the Smith & Wesson includes a frame lock. Made in China. And the Smith & Wesson weighs 99.37 grams. And the Smith & Wesson is not going to be outdone by an Old Timer with a score of 185. At a price of $27 is this CRKT brand. It has a stainless steel handle and a gray nitride blade. Stainless steel handle to withstand hard use. Titanium nitride finish improves corrosion resistance. Just like most of the other knives, the CRKT has a liner lock. And the CRKT is made in China. And is 92.7 grams for the CRKT. And the CRKT is 40 points behind the Mossy oak with a sharpness score of 205. At a price of $30 is this Buck Knives brand. They claim that their stainless steel blade delivers excellent strength and edge retention. We're going to test that. Most of the knives have liner locks, but the Buck has a frame lock. The pocket clip can be removed. And the Buck Knives is made in China. And the Buck weighs 132.23 grams. And the Buck is pretty sharp at 175, which is good enough to move into third place behind the Steinbruke. Also the price of $30 is this Civivi brand. It's constructed of black stonewashed D2 steel. It's supposed to be easy to sharpen and is supposed to hold an edge. We're going to test that. Ceramic ball bearing pivot construction which allows for quick and snappy one-handed flipper. It has a G2 handle that's supposed to be smooth to the touch. It also has a liner lock. And the Civivi is made in China. And the Civivi is pretty light at just under 79 grams. And the Civivi is a #1 seller on Amazon, and it seems to make sense with a sharpness score of 130. Very impressive! At a price of $30 is this Kershaw brand. The blade has been coated with carbon-enhanced black oxide to hold a sharp edge and allow for easy sharpening. Bright orange handle improves ease of finding when unexpected emergencies arise. And the Kershaw is made in China. And the Kershaw has a liner lock, includes a window breaker. And the Kershaw weighs 121.6 grams. And the Kershaw is also one of the sharpest knives in the lineup at 160. At a price of $36 is this CJRB brand. It has an AR RPM 9 blade. It has a stainless steel handle with a button lock. It's supposed to weigh just 3.7 ounces. The knife includes dual thumb knobs for ease of opening the knife, made in China. And it's 112.71 grams for the CJRB. The CJRB also performed well with the sharpness score of 185. At a price of $39 is this Gerber brand. The blade is made of 5CR stainless steel. And the Gerber is made in China. And the Gerber is by far the heaviest yet at 190.76 grams. And the brand new Gerber blade isn't nearly as sharp as most of the other brands at 245. At a price of $39 is this Kizer brand. They claim it's very lightweight at only 2.19 ounces. The knife blade is crafted of German-made Nitro V steel. Combination of flipper and liner lock enables convenient one-hand opening and closing. And the Kizer is made in China. And the Kizer is very light at only 61.85 grams. And the Kizer could use some touch-up work with the knife sharpener at $225. At a price of $40 is this Icon brand, which is sold at Harbor Freight. Ceramic ball bearings provide fast and smooth deployment with just one hand. Premium D2 blade steel offers long-lasting edge retention. Low-friction pivot point to reduce wear and to extend the life of the knife. The blade length is just over 3 inches. The Icon blade is secured in place by a liner lock. And the Icon is made in China. And the Icon weighs 109.15 grams. And the Harbor Freight Icon performed well with the sharpness score of 175. Also at a price of $40 is this SOG brand. The blade is made of Cryo 440C stainless steel. The blade is supposed to open quickly with fast opening SOG assisted technology. And the blade is secured in the open position using a liner lock. And the SOG is made in China. And it's 127.69 grams for the SOG. And the SOG is also very sharp at 155 to move in a second place behind the Civivi. At a price of $265 is this Zero Tolerance brand. The blade is made of 20 CV stainless steel. The handle is made of titanium with glow-in-the-dark carbon fiber overlay. The flipper is designed for easy use using the KVT system. And the Zero Tolerance is made in the United States. And the Zero Tolerance weighs right at 141 grams. And the $265 Zero Tolerance has a sharpness of 220. At a price of $373 is this Boker brand. It's a hardness of 62 to 63 HRC. Ball bearing blade is supposed to allow for smooth and quick opening. And the Boker is made in Germany. And it's 91.67 grams for the Boker. And the German-made Boker not only sounds and looks sharp, but it's very sharp with a sharpness score of 140. So the $30 Civivi comes with the sharpest factory sharpened knife edge with a sharpness score of 130. The Boker finished in second place at 140, and SOG finished in third with a sharpness of 155. And it takes just over 2.5 pounds of force to release the liner blade lock on the AOSILEY. And it takes a lot less force to unlock the Albatross at 1.37 pounds. And the GW takes very close to 2 pounds of force to unlock the blade. And the Mossy takes a little thumb and finger strength and effort to release at 4 pounds. And the Steinbruke is very easy to work with at 0.85 pounds. And the Crescent performed about the same as the GW at 2.08 pounds. And the lockback on the old timer takes quite a bit of force at 7.345 pounds, the most yet. And the frame lock on the Smith & Wesson also takes quite a bit of force at 6.615 pounds. And the CRKT takes a little bit more force than average at just over 3 pounds. The Buck also takes a little bit more force than average at 3.42 pounds. The Civivi is pretty easy to unlock at only 1.79 pounds. And the Kershaw is also pretty easy to unlock at 1.62. And the CJRB is unlocked at 2.67 pounds. The Gerber takes quite a bit of force from the thumb at 3.97 pounds. The Kizer is very easy to unlock at only 1.255 pounds. The Icon is also pretty easy to unlock at 1.745 pounds. And it's right at 2 pounds of force to unlock the blade on the SOG. The Zero Tolerance is also pretty close to average at 2.65 pounds. And the Boker takes less force than average to unlock at only 2.105 pounds. If you're looking for a blade lock that releases under the lightest force, the Steinbruke came out on top at 0.85 pounds. The Kizer finished in second place at 1.255 and the Albatross third at 1.37 pounds. Let's see how smoothly the blades open once again using the scales. Since some of the knives have spring-assisted blades, I'll start at the midpoint. And the AOSILEY takes quite a bit of force at 105 grams. The Albatross also takes quite a bit of force at 97 grams. The GW takes less force than the AOSILEY and the Albatross at 81 grams. The Mossy is by far the smoothest yet at only 44 grams. And the Steinbruke is even better than the Mossy at only 28 grams. The Crescent also performed well at only 33 grams. A little stiffness and arthritis is to be expected from an old-timer at 91 grams. The Smith & Wesson is at 82 grams, about the same as the GW. And the CRKT is about the same as the Albatross at 98 grams. The Buck is almost as stiff as the old-timer at 89 grams. The Civivi has ceramic ball bearing construction and is very smooth at only 11 grams. And the Kershaw performed better than average at 48. The CJRB is also very easy and smooth at 18 grams. Unfortunately, the Gerber takes quite a bit of force to open at 187 grams. The Kizer is also very smooth and easy to open at 13 grams. And the Icon moves into the lead at only 7 grams of force. The SOG is the same as the Kizer at 13 grams. Zero Tolerance is the same as the Civivi at 13 grams. And the Boker is at 15 grams, which is also very smooth. So the Harbor Freight Icon opens effortlessly at only 7 grams of force. The Civivi and Zero Tolerance are as smooth as silk at only 11 grams. Let's test the durability of the factory blade edge next using this Osage orange wood. This stuff is incredibly hard and will dull knives for sure. Let's make this a very tough test and make 150 back and forth passes with 5 pounds on top of the knife. This was quite a workout. So let's test the sharpness once again. The AOSILEY started out at 190 and the blade is now pretty dull at 300. The Albatross started off at 205 and has lost quite a bit of sharpness at 310. The GW started off at 215 and it's the dullest yet at 315. The Mossy Oak started off very sharp at 165 and now it's at 350, the dullest yet. The Steinbruke also started off very sharp at 170 and held the sharpest edge yet at 240. The Crescent started off pretty dull at 235 and now it's at 335. The old-timer also lost 100 sharpness points going from 195 to 295. The Smith & Wesson also experienced a lot of dulling going from 185 to 290. And the CRKT started off at 205 and now it's at 320. The Buck started off pretty sharp at 175 and now it's tied for the sharpest knife yet at 240. The Civivi started off super sharp at 130 and now it's at 265. The Kershaw also started off very sharp at 160 and moves into first place at 235. The CJRB started off at 185 and it lost 110 sharpness points to 295. The Gerber started off the dullest in the lineup and now it's at 260. The Kizer started off at 225 and it held up well at 270. The Icon started off sharper than average at 175 and lost 115 sharpness points to 290. The SOG started off very sharp at 155 and it held up well at 225 to move into first place over the Kershaw. The Zero Tolerance started off duller than average and that really helped it hold an edge at 220. The Boker started off extremely sharp at 140 and is still the sharpest blade at 210. So after 150 back and forth passes on the very hard Osage orange wood, the Boker is the sharpest at 210. Zero Tolerance is almost as sharp at 220 and SOG third at 225. I'll go ahead and sharpen all the knives, this time using a 17-degree angle. I'm using a very aggressive sharpening angle intentionally to compare the blade metal quality and durability. A poor quality material just won't hold a sharp blade edge. After forming a burr with the 100 diamond stone, I'll make 10 passes with 200 grit. I'll then make 15 passes with 400, 600, and 800 grit. I'll then finish with 30 passes with 1000 grit. I won't sharpen the tip of the knife since I'll be testing the blade tip durability next. And the blade edge looks nice. So I'll make 30 back and forth passes across the leather strop. I spent most of the day sharpening all the knives trying to make them as equally sharp as possible. So let's test their sharpness once again. And the AOSILEY was at 190 when new and now it's extremely sharp at 110. And the Albatross is even sharper than the AOSILEY at 105. I made several attempts to make the GW super sharp, but 125 is as sharp as it's going to get. Just like the GW, the Mossy Oak is maxed out at 125 sharpness points. And the Steinbruke is very easy to sharpen and is extremely sharp at 100. The Crescent is also pretty sharp at 115. The Smith & Wesson is the same sharpness as the Crescent at 115. And the old-timer formed a very sharp knife edge at 105. The CRKT isn't quite as sharp as the old-timer at 120. And the Kershaw blade sharpened up nicely at 110 sharpness points. And the Buck is just as sharp as the Steinbruke with a sharpness score of 100. And the Civivi is also sharper than the utility knife blade at 105. The CJRB was pretty challenging to sharpen and now it's at 125. And the Gerber formed a very sharp knife edge with a sharpness score of 100. The Kizer is about the same sharpness as the Gerber at 105. And the SOG is also pretty sharp with a sharpness score of 115. And the Harbor Freight Icon has the same sharpness as the SOG at 115. And the Zero Tolerance is extremely sharp at 105. And the Boker is also extremely sharp with a sharpness score of 105. So all of the knives are a lot sharper than when they were new with a sharpness ranging from 100 to 125. After forming a very aggressive 17-degree blade edge, let's run the blades across this bamboo cutting board. I'll only make 50 back and forth passes since the blades are very susceptible to blade edge roll. I'm all finished running the knives across the bamboo cutting board. So let's see which knife did the best job of holding a sharp edge. For a $6 knife, the AOSILEY held up really well with a sharpness score of 145. And the Albatross started off with a sharpness of 105 and dulled quite a bit to 185. And the GW started off at 125 and struggled to hold a blade edge with a sharpness score of 210. The Mossy Oak also took quite a bit of effort to sharpen and dulled pretty badly to 215. The Steinbruke started off sharp at 100 and now it's at 195. The Crescent started off at 115 and it only lost 20 sharpness points, the best yet. The Smith & Wesson also started off at 115 but it dulled quite a bit to 205. The Oldtimer started off very sharp at 105 but lost 110 sharpness points from 50 passes across the bamboo cutting board. After forming a very sharp knife edge, the CRKT's knife edge dulled quite a bit to 195. The Kershaw did a great job of holding a blade edge in the first test and it performed well once again at 135. The Buck wasn't able to hold a sharp edge once before and is still not able to hold a sharp edge at 180. The Civivi started off super sharp at 105 and is still very sharp with a sharpness score of 150. The CJRB really struggled to hold a sharp edge in the first test and it's in really bad shape now at 265. The Gerber did a fantastic job of holding a blade edge in the first test and it did a great job once again at 150. The Kizer also held a sharp blade edge in the first test and is still sharper than new at 155. The SOG is another strong performer in both tests with a sharpness score much better than average at 130. And the Icon is now the sharpest knife in the lineup with a sharpness score of 125. And the quality of the blade steel on the Zero Tolerance is by far the best yet with a sharpness score of 115. Very impressive. And the Boker also performed well but not as well as the Zero Tolerance at 130. After 50 passes across the bamboo cutting board, the Zero Tolerance is the sharpest knife with a sharpness score of 115. Icon finished in second place at 125. SOG and Boker both have a sharpness score of 130. Not all the knives started off with the same sharpness score, and the Icon and Zero Tolerance experienced the least amount of sharpness loss at only 10 sharpness points. SOG also performed well with a sharpness loss of only 15. A blade lock on a folding knife is a very important safety feature. I applied 25 pounds of downward force on each of the knives and the blade locks on all the knives held up just fine. Let's test the blade point durability next. I'll drop the knives from about 4.5 feet onto a piece of mild steel which should be softer than the blade tips. And the AOSILEY experienced a direct hit. Fortunately, the blade tip held up really well with only a small amount of damage. And the Albatross also experienced a very direct hit. The blade tip on the Albatross did experience a little bit more damage than the AOSILEY. And the blade dulled quickly on the GW, a good indication that the metal is pretty soft. Unfortunately, the blade tip on the GW experienced a lot of damage. And the Mossy Oak experienced more damage than the AOSILEY and the Albatross, but not as much as the GW. And the Steinbruke experienced about the same amount of damage as the Mossy Oak. The Crescent is one of the heaviest knives in the lineup, and the blade tip experienced a little bit more damage than the Steinbruke. The direct hit on the blade tip of the Smith & Wesson caused the blade tip to experience a pretty bad bend. And the blade tip on the Oldtimer seems pretty soft and experienced quite a bit of damage. Just like the Oldtimer, the CRKT is pretty soft and experienced quite a bit of damage. The Kershaw held a very sharp blade edge and the blade tip seems very durable. Definitely a better quality blade steel compared to many of the other knives. And the Buck is also a pretty heavy knife and the blade tip experienced quite a bit of damage from the impact. And the Civivi held up really well with only a small amount of damage to the blade tip. And the CJRB also experienced some damage to the blade edge as well as a small bend to the blade tip. The Gerber is the heaviest knife, and the blade tip survived the impact and still looks as good as new. The Kizer is a very lightweight knife, and it too held up very well from the direct impact. Just like the Gerber and the Kizer, the SOG held up really well and still looks as good as new. The Icon from Harbor Freight wasn't too happy about getting dropped and tried to take out the camera. And the Icon held up really well with just a small amount of damage. The Zero Tolerance is made of very hard metal that's designed to offer a very long-lasting and durable edge. And the Zero Tolerance experienced a very small amount of damage. The Boker is also constructed of a very hard blade steel, and the blade tip on the Boker still looks as good as new. When it comes to blade tip durability, 5 of the knives receive the best possible rating of 1. A knife blade that is really loose and moves side to side can be a challenge to use efficiently in some situations. I'll use a dial indicator at 3.5 inches from the pivot point to measure the slop. And the AOSILEY is very sloppy and loose at 10.45 millimeters of side-to-side movement as you'd expect from a $6 knife. And the Albatross is even more sloppy and loose than the AOSILEY at 10.9 millimeters. And the GW moves into the lead at 8.1 millimeters of side-to-side travel. And the Mossy Oak offers by far the best stability yet at 6.63 millimeters. The Steinbruke has a lot of side-to-side movement at just over 10 millimeters. And the Crescent is even better than the Mossy Oak at 6.19 millimeters to move into the lead. The Smith & Wesson is better than average at 7.77 millimeters. And the Oldtimer has a little too much slop at 8.58 millimeters. The CRKT moves into third place behind the Mossy Oak at 6.7 millimeters. The Kershaw Kershaw performed very well in most categories, but this is definitely an area for improvement at 10.7 millimeters. The Buck performed better than average at 7.41 millimeters. For such a small and lightweight knife, the Civivi is doing a terrific job at 4.36 millimeters to move into the lead. And the CJRB also offers a lot of blade stability at 5.8 millimeters. The Gerber performed quite a bit better than average at 6.52 millimeters. And the Kizer performed the same as the Gerber at right at 6.52 millimeters. The SOG is at 7.37 millimeters, which is a little bit better than average. And the Icon moves into second place behind the Civivi at 5.34 millimeters. As you'd expect from a brand called Zero Tolerance, the tolerances are the best in the lineup at only 2.86 millimeters. Very impressive. And the Boker offers very good side-to-side stability at 4.2 millimeters. So the Zero Tolerance offers the best stability at only 2.86 millimeters of side-to-side movement. The Boker finished in second place at 4.2 millimeters and Civivi 4.36. So which knife is the best? I converted raw score into a 1st through 19th finisher rating, and the Boker came out on top with the best average finisher rating of 3.9. However, the Boker is very expensive at well over $300. The very affordable Civivi finished in a close second place with an average finish at 4.2. It's a very lightweight knife and would definitely be my choice for an everyday carry. If you're a Harbor Freight customer, the Icon knife is of very good quality. Regarding the Zero Tolerance, it would have definitely won the showdown if it had a very sharp knife edge when new. It is a very high quality knife and is very refined, but it's also very expensive at a price of $265. If you're looking for more details on the folding knives, please check out the video description. Also, all the videos in this channel are viewer suggested, so if you have a video idea, I hope you'll take time to leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching, please take care, and look forward to next time.